Welcome to the Relief from Grief podcast, hosted by Mrs. Miriam Ribiat and brought to you by Miriam. Miriam is an organization dedicated to supporting families who have experienced the loss of a child. It was founded Le'ilui Nishmas Nechama Liba and Miriam Holman. Despite her illness, Miriam devoted herself to addressing the needs of parents and siblings grappling with the immense pain of losing a child. She felt this loss deeply, having experienced it firsthand when her older sister, Nechama Liba, passed away. Miriam continues to uplift and expand on the work Miriam began, a mission carried forward by her parents with great dedication. If you have any questions or comments for the speaker, or if you'd like to suggest a guest for the podcast, please email us at relieffromgrief@miriam.org.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Relief from Grief podcast with Miriam. Today, Mrs. Miriam Kahn, who lost a special needs son, is here. So thank you so much for coming on. And I'm so excited. And I know you have so much to say, so excited to get started.
I have a lot to say.
Okay, so should we start off a little bit about, first, could you tell us your son's name?
Okay, my son's name was Zev. We called him Zev. He was Zevi. His Hebrew name, which is important because my grandson is named for him, his Hebrew name was Netanel Zev. We knew he was going to be born with special needs, so we needed to give him a very special name.
Wow, that's so nice. Okay, so should we talk a little bit about when he was born, if you knew about his special, you just told me you knew about his special needs, the other children. Why don't we go into that whole story?
We got it. So my son would be turning 33 next this Shabbos.
Oh, wow.
And he passed when he was 30. He passed July 4th, 2022, Hey Tammuz. Shocking. It was very, very shocking. So when I found out I was expecting him, we had just moved into this house from another house a few blocks away. And I had at the time a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So it was a busy house, and we moved while I was pregnant. I didn't know anything yet. And then again, this is 30 years ago. I'm going to sound like a really old lady, but 30 years ago, they did this test. They probably still do it, called the AFP3. It's a test. It's a blood test. It's nothing invasive. It was a test for spina bifida. And I had that test because I had it with everybody else. And I'm a nurse. And I'm basically a scientist. So more information for me is always better, even if we wouldn't do anything about it. Anyway, so that test came back a little funky, a lot funky. And it was, again, but I just thought it was just standard, whatever. And they sent me for an emergency amnio because I was running out of time should I choose to abort the fetus, which wasn't an option, but the doctors treat you like you might. So they rushed the amnio, and then the results came back, and he had some sort of a genetic flip. Rare. They had at the time really very limited information on what it could look like, but based on what they knew and what these type of syndromes, it was a syndrome, not a name, it doesn't look good. And then I had like a lot of sonograms all the time, and they didn't feel that he would be born alive. So what was interesting was back then we didn't have internet. I told you I'm going to sound like the oldest lady ever.
Well, I could just tell all the listeners what I told you before. You look like your 30s.
63.
Seriously? Wow.
Yeah. My daughter's 37.
Wow. Okay, so you really don't look like that at all.
Thank you. I say I drink a lot of water and I eat pretty well most of the time. So more information for me was always better. I lost my train of thought, but so they said, no, it doesn't look good. We don't really think the baby is going to be born alive. So back in those days, we went to the geneticists and everybody thought it was a terrible idea to continue with the pregnancy. Back then, I don't know where my emunah came from. I grew up in a modern Orthodox home. I am still modern Orthodox with like a big piece of, if it's meant to be, it's going to be. If it's meant to be, it's going to be. And I kind of felt if it's meant for me to have a special needs child, then I'm going to have it. One way or another, I'm going to have it. And he was born fine. Let's just say he was born relatively fine. He had some GI issues, but birth was normal. He was born 3 weeks early. My husband was actually a wedding singer. He was at a wedding. He had to leave the wedding. It was a little drama, but everything was fine. We came home from the hospital fine. He didn't look quite right. They pointed out some features that looked syndromey, and he started to have a lot of GI issues. He had a lot of reflux. He was vomiting a lot, like a lot of medical issues. He had surgery when he was 4 months old, and many surgeries, many GI surgeries, many hospitalizations. When he was 11, he had very extensive back surgery because he had horrendous scoliosis.
Oy.
Horrendous. And it was affecting his breathing and digestion. So, but they were not shy about telling us that he could die during surgery, and it wouldn't be shocking. They were not even shy about it. Anyway, he did great. It was a year of recovery. And unfortunately, soon after he recovered, I found out that I was sick. So his surgery was in 2003. I was sick in 2004. Baruch Hashem, 20 years, it's going to be 21 years ago. I thank God every day. This is what was meant for me. So the girls, one of the main focuses that I had, and it was complicated. I had nurses in the house. He was tube fed for many years. Then we were able to take out the tube, but he only ate purees. He was a very involved, and this is the piece that is very hard to describe if you didn't know him. He was the Chevraman. Everybody in the community knew him. I couldn't get past, if I was ever going out and walking past the shul, we could not get past the shul. He's high-fiving everybody. He's hugging everybody. He was the Chevraman. In his wheelchair, he knew everybody.
Wow.
And his bar mitzvah was Purim 2005, I suppose. Yeah, 2005. There was everybody is still talking about, still to this day, it was the quietest our shul had ever been, was when he got his aliyah.
He was able to.
An aliyah, yeah. He was able to hit the whole family came in from Israel. It was a very big event.
Wow.
And my brother Lanes and my brother read Megillah, and everybody in the family got the aliyahs, but he was able to get an aliyah, and it was quite a moment.
Wow, that's amazing. I can picture what you're saying. I can envision it because there's some, let's say, Down syndrome kids that I've seen, and everyone just loves them. They know everyone. They're very friendly. So I could really, picture what you're saying.
And he had a very big intuition about feelings and people. I got divorced almost 17 years ago, and he knew that there were weird things going on. He couldn't articulate it. He spoke, believe me, he ran the show here, but he knew that things were going on. And if he ever saw me crying or sad, he would his intuition was incredible. He would just come over and give me a hug.
Wow.
And he would say, be happy, mommy.
Wow. How old was he at this point?
It was throughout years and years. And before Shabbos, he would, I still have this, before Shabbos, he would call out, light in the fridge, the light, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. And what about your other girls? They look to him like this?
The hardest thing I ever had to do in my whole life was call them the day that he didn't wake up.
They live near you? No, they live.
Nobody lives near me. Tova's in Israel. She's in Ramat Beit Shemesh in Gimel. And my other daughter is currently in Cleveland, but getting back to Israel. So I'm traveling Safti. I go to Cleveland, I go to Israel, Baruch Hashem. I somehow managed to go when he was alive. I go a little bit more now. I don't have to hire anybody. So that's a little, bittersweet. And when I used to come home from all my trips, I used to sneak into the house if he was asleep. If I landed at, 5, 6 in the morning, but he had eagle hearing, and he'd yell from his room, "Hi, Mom."
Wow.
I had a pair of red shoes. I mean, I still have them. I will never throw them out probably, but every time I put them on, every time, and they're before COVID shoes. So that's over 5 years, 7 years old. And every time I put them on, nice shoes, mom.
Wow. Oh
He was
gosh,
a
I
lot.
just
He was a
laughed.
lot. And he required a lot of care, but he told you what to do. He made it easy. He was a lot of fun. He was a lot of fun.
Was it hard for him? Like, did he realize when he reached, let's say, I don't know, marriageable age that he can't get married?
No,
Oh, so at least that.
no. And he didn't realize that he didn't have quote unquote friends because, and it's interesting, we always had volunteers from the community, people coming in, and from friendship circle, just my friends' sons till they went to Israel, they would come in. And he would say to me, and they would often come, Sunday was a harder day. And he would say to me, are the friends coming today? Friends coming today? So he had a very strong sense of who he was and who people were to him. But it wasn't, he didn't know. He just didn't know. And in the beginning, when he did go the summer that I was sick, I had a lot of treatment. He went to HASC, but he was young. He was 12 and he hadn't yet seen my daughters coming and going, camp, Israel thing. So it was a very strange thing for him. Then it evolved that they're coming and going and coming and going. And I mean, they're big girls. So it was a whole difference. He really didn't. And he didn't know that he didn't go places. He didn't know. He didn't really understand that, despite how intuitive he was, but he knew things. One of his therapists was asking me, it was January time, and you couldn't tell him in advance if anybody was coming or if there was a trip because he didn't have a sense of time either. So everything was tomorrow. So his therapist said to me, when are you going to Israel next? And I knew that my next was my daughter and her family coming in from Israel. So I said, and I actually told the story at his Levaya, I said, I tried to think of a code way to say it. I said, the big one is coming in for the spring holiday. She leaves, goes out the door. In 2 seconds, he picks up his iPad, calls his father, and Abba, Tova's coming for Pesach. There are a lot of stories like that, but that one was the most striking because what?
Wow. Wow. See, he was fun. He was just like a boy.
Tremendous.
Fun to... When did you realize that he was mentally special needs?
From the beginning.
Oh, you
From
did
the
realize
beginning.
from the beginning.
Yeah, he spoke late. Everything he did was late. Everything was delayed. He walked late. He spoke late. And in the end, he walked with a walker, but he always understood everything and he knew the girls. My girls they looked alike and I dressed them alike and they had the same hair. So their names are Tova and Shira. But his speech therapist used to yell at me to stop dressing them alike and change their hair because he used to call them Tova Shira, like they were one entity. But he
I have
knew.
identical twin sons, Maishi and Dovi. When they were younger, they were just Maishi Dovi to people because no one knew who they were. So you're either Maishi or Dovi. So we'll just call both of you Maishi Dovi.
That's great. That is great. and that's what it was for him. That's what it was.
Wow.
And they came and they went and he called them and FaceTime and they visited and they surprised him. Some of the pictures I have and the videos I have of the surprises were crazy.
Wow. So what happened that made you move him into an assisted living?
So it was something that was eventually going to have to happen. A few things happened at around the same time. My father passed away actually 14 months before my son. And it was around that time that my son's father, my ex, was having a lot of medical challenges. And I really depended on him. I went to Israel a lot, Baruch Hashem, a million times. I went to Israel a lot, and I made arrangements for during the week. My mom used to sleep here in my house. He had a handicap room in the back over there. And then my mother couldn't. She was getting older. My dad wasn't well, and then he passed away. And his father could no longer really handle him over the weekend. So it became, because there was a parent that was let's say disabled, for lack of a better word, we got moved up on this endless waiting list.
Oh,
And it was very difficult, but it was time anyway. He had been home with me from COVID. I kept him home before, like a week before anybody else stayed home, because I was very nervous about his asthma. He had a lot of asthma hospitalizations. He got a lot of flu. Every time he got flu, he ended up asthmatic, oxygen, the whole thing.
mhm.
So I was very nervous. So he was home with me for nearly 2 years. Home. He had home. His day hab kept Zoom open for him. I wouldn't send him because if anybody got sick, I was terrified. And he was home. We were home together. I got extra help. I had an aide for him during the day when I worked. And then that was the afternoon from when he got home from his program till bedtime. And during COVID, and though that nearly 2 years till January, he had a morning aide also who's they were fabulous. I was very, very lucky. I don't for 1 second, it was really minashamayim. They were really unbelievable. And now my trips are getting compromised. I could barely be. My father he passed away on a Saturday night. My brothers came in. They live in Israel. They came in from Israel. And that was like the last time that he was really able to take care of my son. And then when I sat Shiva, he took him for Shabbos. But it was a big tircha. He couldn't do it anymore. We got moved up on the waiting list. A home had a spot in Queens. Wasn't my first choice. I live in West Hempstead. But yet when we went there, we felt that it was right for him.
How far are you from there?
20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes, depending. And I went very often. It was a slow entry. I brought him on a Thursday. He slept over Thursday night. I brought him home for Shabbos. I brought him back on Sunday. And then I went first 4 times a week and then 3 times a week. It was very hard to separate. It was very hard.
And he was happy. He wasn't wondering why you're.
Loved it.
Oh, at least
He called it my house, but he didn't think of himself as one of the individual's clients there, right?
Of course
He
not.
considered himself a staff member. Like when they would come out to give medications, he'd sit in front of the book. He couldn't read with a pen. And, he was, of the people in the house, his people, there was one guy that was there that was okay for him, but really his people were the staff. Those were his friends.
And I guess you were
Loved him. Loved him. It was very devastating when he passed away. It was so he went January, end of January, slow entry. It was drama for me. It was, wow. I couldn't believe I was doing it. It wasn't right for our family till that point. It really just wasn't. And it worked out the way it was supposed to work out. I got used to him not being here. I would go very, very often. I called him. He called me. I had, I believe, one Israel trip in May for my father's yard site. I went to Israel and come July, he didn't wake up one day. Nothing. He was, oddly enough, he was his healthiest self when he passed away. He looked beautiful. I wasn't home. I was on the first vacation of my life. That wasn't children or business. I was in Colorado with a friend. I had to get home. I got the phone call at 4 a.m. Colorado time, 6 a.m. But I spoke to him the night before because he knew I was in a hotel. He loved hotels. So anytime I went away on business or whatever, he loved hotels. I'd have to take him on FaceTime around. I was on a cruise with work a couple of years back, and I couldn't get him off FaceTime. So I had spoken to him the night before at 9 p.m. He was great. Showed me the room, showed him everything, the bathroom, the pool, the whole thing.
So what happened?
Don't know. Mitat nishika.
Wow.
No idea. He looked beautiful. He looked peaceful. He had a very unique sleeping position on his belly with his head turned to the side. With his CPAP, he wore a CPAP. I didn't know you could sleep on your belly with a CPAP. He figured it out. Hands like this. I saw him on video.
So they came in the next morning to do whatever they do.
To wake him up at 6. They say they had seen him at midnight and he was fine.
Wow.
But he had already, but by the time they came in, but I'm going to sound like a crazy person, but you already know I'm not. So I'll tell you anyway. So when he called me, I go, Josh, is everything okay? He goes, no. He said, no. And
Right.
he said, Zev didn't wake up. He passed overnight. And I'm like, no, I'm sure he's fine. Let me talk to Hatzala. That was me. I'm like,
Right.
no, let me just talk to them. I'm sure he's fine.
That doesn't sound crazy. That
And
sounds very normal.
I'm sure he's fine. So there I am sitting on the floor near the outlet because I was using my iPad. My daughter was on FaceTime. I was trying to get a hold of my other daughter. I was trying to get a hold of my ex. I was trying to get a hold of my family. It was the Chaver Kadisha, who's a very good friend of mine, the Rav of the community. And then I had to get on a plane.
Wow.
But that saying that kept me from back when I was pregnant, at which I hear I'm a very big fan of Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg and his Emunah Shir. Very big fan, especially since October 7th. The phrase that he repeats over and over again, I'm exactly where I'm meant to be, was something that's when I had him. This is what I'm meant to be doing. Any hospitalization, this is what I'm meant to be doing. Different ways to say it, but that was always what gave me peace. And really, even on the flight home, I said, this is the way it was meant to be. I had 4 hours on a plane. I had to get 2 hours from where I was. Where was I? I was in Vale. I was in Vale. Had to drive 2 hours with my friend, drove me to Denver, to the airport. I had that time in the car making phone calls, calling the people that I didn't want to hear. I didn't want them to hear it from the shul email. So I had
Right.
certain people to call, all the relatives. It was a lot. So I did all that. And at the airport, and then there was a woman at the airport who came over to me and just said, I'm so sorry. She heard me on the phone. And then I
Wow.
got on the plane, and I have to tell you, those 4 hours, I think it was 4 hours, I'm not really sure because of the time zone, were the biggest bracha of my life.
Really?
Oh, yeah, it was peaceful. I forgot. I'm a Delta, whatever I am. I forgot I have Wi-Fi on the plane. Totally forgot. My phone was in the pocket. Thank God I forgot.
Right.
And I wrote my hesped for him. I had my laptop out, crying, and I wrote my hesped.
Wow. Wow.
And then I got off the plane, and my daughter had come in from Cleveland. Little drama there. We didn't know that she didn't have her American passport expired during 2020, and she had at the time 3 kids under 3.
Oh my goodness.
So she never did it. I have an amazing cousin from Passaic who got her passport. She made it to Israel. Oh, my son is buried in Israel. After my father passed away, my parents have cemetery plots in Israel. Baruch Hashem, my mother has since made Aliyah. That she should live and be well. My parents bought cemetery plots so many years ago that I remember I was still a kid in the house. And I remember, like, you did what? And I saw what an ordeal it is to bring your loved one to Israel, even with a fully paid for cemetery plot. And I started to get it in my head. My father died, as I already said, 14 months before Zev. So I got it in my head to buy 2 cemetery plots, one for me, one for Zev. Not worried about him. Just if something happens to me, my daughter shouldn't have to worry about it and figure it out. It should be Misudar. And so I started talking about it. My father passed away May of 2021. By November, December, I had already made a phone call to Eretz Chaim and started wheeling and dealing and figuring out where and blah, blah, blah. And I fully paid for 2 cemetery plots at the end of March.
Wow. Wow.
Another
And his
bracha.
father, I guess, is fine with that. He didn't feel like he wants him next to him or whatever.
No.
No.
No. It's like I've always been the main caregiver in the house, the caretaker, the decision maker on many, many levels. And it wasn't even a Shiloh. It
Right.
wasn't even a question.
But
And
it sounds
I
like
didn't
he
ask
had a
him to pay for it.
relationship with him.
Great, amazing. It was very devastating for him, this
It
whole
was.
Yeah, because he wasn't well enough. I went very, very often. I mean, I was there every Sunday. I was there at least 3 or 4 times a week, including Sunday. It wasn't so easy for him to do it. And when I brought him home for Shabbos, he was here. the Shabbos before he passed away. I couldn't have him home that Shabbos because I was went on this vacation. I was leaving Colorado at like 5 a.m. for an 8 a.m. flight. So it wasn't practical for me to have him that Shabbos, but I had him the Shabbos before. Our neighbor's son-in-law is a well-known famous singer who was in my backyard with him the Shabbos before.
Wow.
Yeah.
So should we talk about that? I think it was you that told this to me, and maybe I heard it from more than one person, that losing a special needs child in a way is so much harder than a regular child because the care is so much, you're so much more connected.
You're not even connected. I wouldn't even say connected. You're intertwined. He knew everything about me, him in particular, because he was intuitive. He knew everything about me, my routine, my schedule, what I wore. Like, come on, let's go. And he goes, "You're not ready. No lipstick." I'm like, "Come on, let's." He knew we were so intertwined. And then let's also add to that his physical care, in and out of bed, in and out of the bathroom, washing up, showers, which mostly the aide did, but I got him up every morning. And COVID, we were literally in the house together for almost 2 years. So there are a couple of things. Number one, he had limited friends. It's not like he's a regular kid that like goes out for a play date or goes away for Shabbos. He went to a handful of Shabbatons. It was very hard for me to get him there, pick him up. It wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing for us. And he went away to his father, and thank God we were able. My second daughter's wedding was in Israel. I got him to Israel. But we're not. It's more than connected. It's more than even. We were intertwined. Everything. I knew everything about him. He knew everything about me. There wasn't. It's a whole different game. So when he passed away, I'm reading all the books. I'm watching all the videos. I'm listening to all the podcasts. A lot spoke to me. Most did not. I joined a million Facebook grief groups. Got out of all of them pretty quickly. The people that were my biggest support were I have amazing close friends, childhood friends that are still my friends, who really knew him and really understood what a loss it was. Most people didn't get it.
Did you get comments like, "Oh, you don't have to take care of him anymore? You're not sad?"
Tons of those. Oh, now tons of those from really intelligent people. Well, now you can go to Israel. You don't have to worry about him. That was the biggest one. Baruch Hashem, I go a lot. My daughter is there. Now my mom is there. You don't have to worry about him anymore.
Wow.
But things, I didn't walk around in my neighborhood for at least 10 months after he died because I was afraid of people saying something stupid to me or making me cry. One or the other.
Really?
I didn't go to a grocery store locally. I have two very dear friends, childhood friends that did my shopping for me. I left the house. I was bedridden in the beginning, but I did leave the house. I just didn't go anywhere in the community at all. Rosh Hashanah, they blew shofar here.
Really?
I just couldn't. Yontif, first of all, was his life.
Oh.
Every Yontif. Rosh Hashanah, till my father passed. My father is not a front of the shul kind of guy. He was a quiet man, and he had his seat. And once I was divorced and Zev was with me and we were here in the neighborhood for Yontif, my father moved his seat. My father sat in the front to the right of the bima, and Zev's wheelchair was right next to him in the aisle there.
So Zev was
the whole shul watched Zev find me, wave to me, do his al-chetz, which is adorable, sang every song, knew every word.
Wow.
Every word. So I did not I have not been back in my shul for Rosh Hashanah. First year I stayed home, and the past 2 years I've been in Israel. And hopefully I'll be in Israel now for all the Chagim. So
wow. So what did help you from the stuff that you read and listened to and groups that you joined?
So most of the groups I had to leave. I still am in 2 WhatsApp groups One is a special needs group, but it's not so active. But a lot of it, the other piece, and this is really the bracha for me, that my son's death was very peaceful. For many, many people that lose children, so he wasn't a typical. I mean, there are children that crib death and those, but there was so much trauma in a lot of the groups that I was in that my heart was breaking for everybody,
Wow.
but it wasn't serving me either
Right.
because mine was peaceful. And then, Zev's life was getting harder as he got older. It wasn't going to get easier. It was going to get harder and harder as he got older and he was an adult and start to have adult medical issues. And I always had to worry about his teeth and, his hair was starting to bald a little bit. He was 30 years old. Um, Life was going to get harder. And even though he was really living his best life, it was going to start to change. So there was a little bit of peace, not in me, not my peace of missing him, but the peace that he lived a great life and he knew he had a great life and it was time. So you don't get that from the typical groups. So you ask what helped. So there's a man, a very wise man, David Kessler, the grief community, the whole grief community knows who he is. And I joined his classes. I didn't finish some of them. I joined his regular grief and then I joined the one for parents. And then it still wasn't enough for me because I was so unsettled. I was so agitated. I mean, in the beginning, I live alone, so I have a lot of luxuries living alone. I woke up screaming, literally screaming. It was like hearing the news all over again. And when I heard the news, I was in a hotel with a friend, so I couldn't really scream. But every morning for weeks, I woke up just remembering and just screaming.
Wow.
So I wanted more education. I wanted more understanding. And I told you when I wanted to learn to do something, I do all the reading, I take out all the books, whether it's, knitting or whatever. And I became a certified grief educator.
You did?
I did. I
Oh,
did. Life has gotten very busy, so I've done very little with it. I've supported a few people, but I did.
what does that mean? That you're like a grief therapist?
I'm a certified grief educator. I know how to understand and talk to people in grief and help them through. Not therapy. It's not therapy. It's more like I would call it a grief coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I will, God willing, be doing something with it. Just wasn't really the right time. I still have this.
But what did you get? So where did you get the support or understanding of still that you need something different than a regular mother?
I needed more. I just needed more. I needed more. I was very agitated a lot, unsettled. You know how when you're in something, it's always nice to be in it with somebody else.
Right.
I didn't find a community of and I really, and then one of my I love my brothers. They're very, very good to me. I mean, very good to me. And one of them said, maybe this is at the very beginning, and I had been traveling to Israel a lot. I went for his funeral. We came home, said Shiva here, went back 6 weeks later for the Kamat Matseva, went back again. It was a lot. It was 8 trips. It was a lot. And my brother didn't like how I looked. And he said, maybe you should talk to somebody. And my feeling was, maybe you should talk to a therapist. And my feeling was, there's no therapist that I could talk to that would really understand because I can't talk to somebody who didn't know him. So I did speak to Norman Blumenthal. He's the grief. I don't remember his title. Dr. Norman Blumenthal. He came to my house, actually. Look, my son died in an oh hell home. It's the least thing.
Oh, so you knew. Okay. Because he's an amazing person. He's just
amazing. I did go to the Shabbaton. The Shabbaton was very lovely and helpful. They had, I couldn't go this year because I had other things, but it was very helpful. Our assistant rabbi in shul, Rabbi Yaakov Abramowitz, is a therapist, and he didn't know Zev. He became the assistant rabbi like the week Zev passed away, but he got it. He got it, and he had heard and he had seen. So I went to talk to him. Much of it was similar to what Norman Blumenthal said and similar to what I was learning, but I really I needed more understanding of what this is like. And, in the beginning, I thought I was embarrassed to tell people that I couldn't go to a grocery store. And apparently it's really a thing. I found that out. It's like, no, it's like really grocery store in particular, because especially if it's local, the triggers in the grocery store are next level.
Wow.
Next level. And he loved stores. He loved anything to him was an adventure. Everything that was anything was an adventure. But it's almost like, but I want to. We talked about how intuitive he was. So when it snows, you know how kids love snow, but I hate snow because I have to, especially single. I got to get rid of it myself, figure it
Right.
out, get him in and out. So he learned early on that when he would see it was snowing, he used to go from wow to oh. With the eyes, with the whole thing. Oh,
Wow. Comforting too that like wherever he was, it seems like he brought so much simcha to people.
tremendous. Always, always. So you say the word simcha. So it's important to me to mention his name, Netanel Zev. So my newest grandson is 15 months. He was born a week after October 7th. And I knew my daughter was going to do something with the name, but I also knew that it would be very hard to give anybody the name Zev. So my grandson, you just nailed it. My grandson's name is
Simcha.
Netanel Simcha,
Oh, Netanel Simcha. Oh,
and we call him Netanel.
how nice. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And, interesting because, my father's buried in Israel. My son is buried in Israel. So his siblings, who's now she's 11. So she was, 8, 9, 6, 7, my grandson. They saw, and this is very important. This is really important. They saw up close what heavy grief looks like. They felt it. They saw it. They were very connected to Zev, but live a million miles away, so connected to him. And somehow they knew that talking about him was the right thing. When I was 18, I was 18, 19, my very best friend's father passed away very unexpectedly. And I was not a child. I was 18, but this is many years ago. You know how old I am. And I still remember that feeling of being afraid to say anything about my father or
Right.
her father. And I remember like and it didn't even like dawn on me. Is she forgetting that her father died? Like it didn't even dawn on me. But somehow my grandchildren had a very strong sense to always ask about him. And if she ever saw me crying, Rena, very intuitive, she would go, like she would just whisper, like she knew. And then one day I was in their apartment, and I come out of the bathroom. I didn't even realize that I had been there like a whole bunch of hours before I even saw this. And when you come out of the bathroom, there's a wall in front of you. And I come out, and she had written out in her handwriting, Asher Yatzar. And then she wrote, Ilui Nishmat, Netanel Zev, and something about Mitzvah Gedolah Lihiot B'Simcha Tamid, because that was he always said, be happy. Yeah, his day program honored him. And we just actually, it's going to be ready any minute. We just raised money for a handicap van for his day program at Yachad. And Mitzvah Gedolah Aliyah B'Simcha Tamid. Yeah, I'm going to show you. We printed, it's actually on my purse, so you get to see my purse. But we printed these. These are actually going to go out once the van is. It says, Mitzvah Gedolah Aliyah B'Simcha, be happy, were his words. And in memory of Zev Kahn, Zatzal, whose joy lit up the world.
Wow. That's so beautiful because you really almost have something like tangible that's living on. Like that simcha that he created in this world is tangible.
Tremendous.
Wow.
He never forgot a person. He never forgot a face. He couldn't read. He had some sight words. He couldn't read, but he never forgot your face. He never forgot you, and he never forgot who your spouse was. Really.
So So if someone is listening to this that lost a special needs child, I guess the question is, what like message do you want to give to them?
Well, the message for anybody, really anybody who had I mean, this was a devastating loss because of our connection and also the shock. But back up one second. And one thing I didn't mention was he died in his sleep. And he's been very, very sick many, many, many times. And he could have died any number of horrible deaths. And I recognize that early on. It's back to, and I said this at his Levaya in my hesped. I said very early on, I'm a recovered control freak, perfectionist control freak. So having a special needs child will knock that out of you so fast. But also the fact that I couldn't control anything. I couldn't control my world. I certainly couldn't control his. And all of it, the timing, the way, somewhere there's bracha in that. Somewhere. Again, Baruch Hashem, for me, it wasn't a traumatic death. And it wasn't in a hospital on machines, which it very easily could have been. So for me, but very early on, it was looking for the good. By nature an optimist. I always think somebody really wants to be their best. And if they do something, give them a little grace. Not easy for me because, again, recovering perfectionist, recovering control freak. But, and this is really the most important message for anybody. First of all, you'll think you're losing your mind. You will literally think you are going crazy. And I was positive I was never going to recover. I was positive I'd never be able to step out of my house. And very, very early on, I really wasn't, it was a summer and I wasn't going outside. I was in my chair, in my bed, in his chair, in his bed. Another bracha with his bed, I'll tell you about that. But I had little goals for myself. Like I knew I needed air and sunshine and not just air conditioning and Zev's hospital bed. So I would go out, tiny goals, 5 minutes. I go out for 5 minutes and just stand outside and say Tehillim.
Wow.
And a funny story about his bed. He had a hospital bed, which I had just gotten a new one because my friend's mom passed away. It was a new bed. I gave his away. I moved the new one here. And it was in August. So he passed away in July. It was sometime in August. Somebody in the community puts out a WhatsApp on our community board saying, and it was a friend of my father's, actually. My father can come home from the hospital before Shabbos if anybody knows where we can get a hospital bed.
Oh.
I used to lay down in his bed. It was in his room. It was a hospital bed. His room was beautifully set up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's got to go. And I called him up and I was getting ready to light candles. And the guys came to move the bed to her house, to her mom's house. And unfortunately, it was the same guys that brought the bed from my friend's house who said, hey, where's your son?
Oh.
But it was very therapeutic and it went to somebody good. And I couldn't touch his closet. My housekeeper did his whole closet, but it went to, we bagged it up and it went and it was donated and somebody's going to have some beautifully well-kept brand new clothes. But the message is you have to do for you what you think is right, not what everybody is telling you. I had my friends, a lot of good, really close friends that would like call each other. They're worried about me. And one friend in particular said, she'll be okay. She knows what she's doing. I wrote, there's a lot of things. This is one of the most valuable things that I got out of all the things that I've read and studied. There were a lot of details. And you have this fear that you're going to forget the details. What it felt like, what the phone call was like, what time it was. You want to remember the details. And so very early on, I just wrote and I typed because I actually these days type faster than I write. And I typed. I never went back to look at it, but knowing that it's there in a cloud file, it's there, all the pieces. I don't have to worry about remembering them. There was a lot. And there was, and the beautiful things that people said and the beautiful things that people did, you want to remember them, and you just can't. So writing them down kind of freed me up to just be. And you have to just be. Being in the quiet for me was impossible. Again, I'm alone most of the time. I had to have very soft music playing constant, day and night, even on Shabbos. So I had my iPad set on like the softest sleep music. Music, we know how powerful music is, but for me, apparently, I've learned in all my studies that it's a form of meditation. So is davening and Tehillim, even if you're not concentrating, it's still. So I had music playing. It was on my iPad on the floor on one side of my bed, so that if I needed to hear it, I turned towards it, and if it was too much input, I turned away from it. But part of that comes, look, I've been in the health and wellness field for over 13 years. So I've learned what soothes me, what calms me, other than food. I've learned, and I engaged a lot of those things, some of them consciously, most of them unconsciously, because I've done some of that work before this, which I guess prepared me for this.
So I think, though, what it's important really for those listening to hear that, like, whatever they need, it's okay. For you is music. For someone else, it might be the exact opposite. They need solitude or
Right.
Whatever it is. Everyone has their own needs, and whatever it is, it's really all normal and it's all okay.
And that's the biggest piece. I really, especially that whole grocery store thing, you really think you're crazy. And people go, you can't go to the grocery store? People say, good friends would say that to me. Some understood right away and were happy to indulge me. Literally, they had my shopping list, whatever I needed. And I went to pick it up because I can go to see them. I just couldn't see the strangers. I didn't walk in my neighborhood for months and months. But you have to know you, and people thought I isolated, but I didn't. I took some phone calls. But the most important thing, really the most important thing, and this is like in ancient cultures, people try to say things that they think is going to be helpful. We all know some of those awful things that people say, especially the one where, like, especially when it's special needs, especially when it's somebody that's sick. Wow, what are you going to do with your time now? Somebody said to me. And they said it caring, and I get the question, but like, did you really just say that to me?
Right. So
it's like the importance of just sitting. And I'm going to tell you something. A friend of one of my shoppers, let's call them one of my shoppers. I actually call them my Secret Service. So my birthday was 2 weeks after he passed away. So I guess like a weekish after Shiva. And she texted me. This is one of my Secret Service. She texted me. This was the text. I'm in your backyard on your deck. I have snacks, coffee. Come out only if you want to.
That's so nice.
I was in my bed. It was a very difficult day. Took a minute, but I did go out and we didn't talk. We just sat.
Really?
That is the most important thing. There is nothing anybody could say especially any parent, especially a special needs parent. Nothing anybody could say except a memory of him. And I can only imagine how hard this is.
Yeah, that doesn't feel cliche to you?
Not at all. The one that is really hard to hear is, I have no words. Don't even try, because there are no words. But
right.
Saying that shuts down conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I was with a friend for Yontif, one of the Yom Tovim. I don't remember which. Maybe Pesach, end of Pesach, the first year. And we lit candles. I was a rack, lit a yahrzeit candles. It was the last day. And she just said, tell me what you miss most.
That's really, what people need to know, that they don't have to be scared to bring it up. The tears are always there. No one is.
And they have to come. They have to come.
Right.
it's the people that can sit with you. And why am I describe these certain friends that really, because they would say always, like, unintentionally say a memory of him, repeat a memory that they had of him. That's what you want to hear. It seems like they don't want to rub salt in your wound, but that is all you want to hear.
Right.
You, especially if a child, you want to hear that your child is not forgotten.
Right. Right. Wow.
I'm here. Just be there. Send the text. I didn't answer my phone for a very long time. A very long time, unless it was like immediate Secret Service people, level people. I didn't answer my phone. And I would answer text slowly when I could.
Right. Right.
Just, I'm thinking about you.
Right.
And then again, people I hope know this by now, but never say to somebody who's either, I've been sick, I've had a sick kid in the hospital, I've had a sick kid and I couldn't leave the house, and I sat Shiva twice. Never say the words, if you need anything, let me know. You may as well just poke me in the eye with a fork. If you ever say that, you say to me, and I have friends that did this naturally. You say to me, I'm going to CVS in an hour. Text me your list. I'm going to the library. Do you have anything to return?
Or even more specifically, I'm going to the grocery. Do you need bread or milk?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
mother might not realize that she needs anything
Yes.
grocery, but if you say bread or milk, she might be like, I do not need bread, but I need hot dog buns.
Can I bring you a coffee? I'm going to get coffee. Can I bring you one?
Right.
How do you want it? Not it's look, fortunately, we've had a lot of experience with, needing meal trains and all that. And it's interesting. One of my daughters loved when the people dropped off the meal train. My other daughter just couldn't take it, hid in her room. Literally. We've had meal trains many times for a very long time. And it's like when people would drop it off, the ones that put a note, I'm thinking about you, it was something. It was like it was more than just like, oh my God, I got this meal together for you.
Right.
More than that. It was like thinking of you and I'm here.
Right. Right. Listen, knowing how to really show empathy is a skill. It's a skill that it's an enviable skill, in my opinion. Like if someone has that, I envy it. I don't know if I have it or not. I hope I do. I wish I do, but when it comes so naturally to people, it's amazing. And
It,
it's so, it's so
it
comforting
is.
to those that, need it.
I tell my grandchildren, the older ones, I say, so she's 11 now, he's 9, and my son is 2.5 years. I say to them, you are the luckiest, unlucky little children. I said, because they had to deal with it. It was very awful. It was very awful. And you also learned you had to deal with it. So I'm sad for you, but I'm happy for you because you know how to deal with it.
Right.
And it took them a long time. They've been to my father's kever. They didn't go to Zev's until more recently, but they were here last summer. They painted rocks. They took them back. So he has a few painted rocks on his kever. It took a while. They weren't ready to go. But they just get it. And they're smart kids. I don't know that they're that much smarter than the kids next door, but they've had this so up close and personal. They also give me my space when I need it. And then my granddaughter, something interesting. I go to Israel for his yard site, obviously. So I was there this past year. It was July 11th. He died on July 4th, which was bizarre because he hated fireworks. Hated fireworks. Hated fireworks. But so July 11th, and it was also a day that my brother, we had an opportunity, and he asked me if I wanted to go. It was the day of the art site, and we were meeting at the cemetery. The whole family comes. It's a whole beautiful thing, and my daughter makes a dinner. We were meeting at the cemetery at 5 o'clock, and my brother said, I don't know if you want to go, but we have an opportunity to go on a mini tour down south to the Nova site, to the car park, to Stay Road, to Be'eri. And then one other thing that we didn't get to. And he goes, I know it's the yard site, but we're going to be back and you're welcome to come with us. I went on the day of the yard site, and my granddaughter, she was 10 at the time, she looks at me, she goes, you're going down south? You, with her finger, you don't have enough traumas? But I'm going to tell you, it was very healing for me. It was very healing. It was horrible. It was horrific, but it was very healing.
Imagine.
Because one of the things when life was difficult, like many, many years ago, one of the things that was very important to me when I was working very hard. I'm a single mom, a lot of hours, intense job. The beach pulled me. So I would drive to Long Beach, even if I only had 5-10 minutes, and walk on the boardwalk with music, soft music, on often one song on repeat, because it's very meditative. That's a hint for people who think they don't meditate. You might, because you don't have like the startle of a new song coming on that you may not want to listen to. So one song on repeat. And I would just have to see the ocean to see that there's a world bigger than my little house and the drama and awful things happening in my little house. And the beach was and going down south also, that while they're giving you the tours, they're also talking about the miracles that happened. And there's a much bigger world out there. We don't run it. We can't even pretend to run it. And there's a greater mission somewhere. I know I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Wow. Well, I think it's a beautiful ending message, but I do always like to give my guests the opportunity if there's something that we didn't get to that you want to leave with.
When, I would ask you a question. What are when you interview people, I've heard many, what are you curious about? It's important for me that people understand that this is gigantic, but you will recover. You won't really, recover is not the right word. You will get through it and the grief comes and goes. Purim, my son's bar mitzvah was on Purim. I don't yet know what I'm doing on Purim. And it was a Friday, his bar mitzvah year. And we always celebrated his birthday on Purim. And his birthday is this Shabbos. And I don't know yet what I'm doing. But it changes. And that's the thing to know. There are some days where it's going to feel very, very heavy. Every time there's a simcha in the family, it's twofold, because I can go to a wedding much easier in Lakewood than I used to and have a lot of weddings in Lakewood. But he loved weddings. Oh my God. Loved
You took him with you to weddings?
Yeah. Till more recently, when it was harder, because it was harder to get him up in the morning. But oh my gosh, loved. And I had a bunch of weddings right after he passed. It was very difficult. Family wedding. I did. They were very close family. My nephew, niece. Those were very difficult. I didn't drive. I had somebody drive me. It was very difficult. But of course I went. For those I went. Many things I didn't go to. Many invitations I did not take, but anybody close to me. It wasn't easy. But it was, I wanted to. I could have also said no, thank you. But, I had I was alone, which it was awful and it was great because I could do whatever I wanted. So it was awful and it was great. And you have to appreciate where you are. Again, it's all min hashamayim. The way he died, how he died, even early on. And my daughter in her hesped in the shul said, this is how she started. He would have hated to miss this.
Right.
It's it's this thing. And I'm not Hasidish. I'm as modern Orthodox as they come. Young Israel family through and through. Why you Young Israel family through and through. And it's this concept of I don't control it, and this is what's meant for me. And I don't know why, but this is it.
You know what? Without your Muna, how could you go on?
I
So
don't,
it's amazing how strong your Muna is.
I don't know. And one other message to people is, and I know that most of the people who your audience is probably people who are heavily in grief, right?
Not necessarily. A lot of people that never even went through grief listen.
So that is that is actually one of my missions. I just haven't had time to do anything about it. Is one of my real missions is how to support people in grief. Because you need to not be judged when you are laying in bed on your son's birthday, or not going to the grocery store for 10 months, or certain places you may never be able to walk into. You know, my son's house was on Casino Boulevard. Anytime I'm on the LIE and I see Casino Boulevard, I lose a little breath. But the ability to be with people and not judge them for how they're doing it. You don't know how you would do it, but it's, you know, that phrase, you do you, especially here. And then the other message for the general population is know what comforts you. We're all going to go through something. Best case scenario, we're going to bury both our parents and a couple of older siblings if you happen to have them. Best case scenario. And I was very angry when my father died, by the way. I know this is the topic here, because I was very angry at how unprepared we are for grief as a community, as a society, as a Jewish community, society in general. I was very angry because my father had a great life. He had a great life. His legacy, his children, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren. You know, he doesn't consider himself a Holocaust survivor because he was in Siberia, the Siberian hotel for the war. But he had a great life, and he made a great life. And he left my mother beautiful, the ability to have a beautiful life. And the misery that I felt after he died, I felt was unfair. I'm not talking about sadness was one thing, but the misery felt like we were very unprepared for it. But health and wellness is my field. I'm a nurse by trade, a coach for the past 13 years. And I knew the things that calmed me, because we all go through moments. We all have moments where we just want to scream, kick, yell, break something, drive off a cliff if it's that crazy. But know what you need, what quiets your mind, what quiets your soul. And I already had a lot of that down pat.
Okay, so that's fortunate for you.
That's the message. Know what can comfort you.
Right.
Know what, some people need a party. Other people I need a lot of quiet.
Right.
I needed a lot of quiet. Sometimes
some people may need cheer, and some people may need to organize every drawer and closet in their house.
Correct. But no, you have to know yourself. There's no right or wrong. You have to know yourself. Wow. And you have to really be attuned to what can calm you.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I'm sorry it took us so long to connect. It was it's really a pleasure. And really, if I can support anybody, just send them my way. I'm happy to. This is not wasn't something I was looking to monetize. This is just something that it was not easy to find the right community for me, because it was such a unique situation.
Right. Okay. I will definitely pass that message along if anyone reaches out to me. Thank you.
You've just listened to an episode of the Relief from Grief podcast with Miriam Riviere, brought to you by Miriam. For more episodes, visit the Miriam website at www.miriam.org. Help us reach more people who might benefit from this podcast. If you know someone who could find it helpful, please share it with them. If you have questions or comments for the speaker, or if you'd like to suggest a guest for the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at relieffromgrief@miriam.org. We look forward to having you join us in the next episode.